A big benefit for our veteran community is using and leveraging your VA home loan with no money down. That is something that's absolutely huge. Today, we're breaking down if you should put money down and how this affects your ability to buy a property. Today, we have our wonderful resident expert, David Piatek, with VA Housing Education. David, go ahead and take it away from here.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, today's topic is a good one because a lot of times we ask veterans, do they want to put money down when they're buying a home? And they're like, well, why would I even have to put money down if I get 100% financing? So obviously huge benefits of a VA home loan, like putting no money down, no private mortgage insurance. And there's not even a minimum time you have to live in that property before you can rent it. Unlimited use. So if you could use it from day one, from the time you turn 18, you've been in service for 90 days, all the way till you're 90 years old. And yes, you can still get a 30-year mortgage at 90. It's okay. And you can have unlimited VA home loans as well, which is another huge benefit of the VA loan. But this one topic is something that always kind of we come back to is, hey, I bought multiple homes. I keep doing 100% financing. And there is definitely a downside to doing that, which is what's called the VA funding fee. You guys familiar with those?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the only time you get around not paying what's called the VA funding fee is if you have a 10% or higher disability rating, which is at least you should have. Yeah, there's probably something wrong with everybody. At least 10% wrong. So you can at least get that waiver on your VA loan. And that is also a life benefit as long as you receive it. On top of all the tax breaks that you get with your disability compensation, which you don't need to use a VA loan in order to get those tax benefits. You just have to be on title. So keep that in mind. And I'm sure we'll do a separate video on that. So the VA funding fee, what that fee is that VA uses that money to run the VA home loan program across the country. So that fee ranges based on if you're putting money down or not, or if you are using for the VA home loan for the first time, or if it's subsequent use, meaning you've used it more than once. So I'll break down the numbers pretty quick. First time use, 2.15%. Now that gets rolled into the mortgage. You use the VA loan for a second time and on and put no down payment. It's 3.3. 5% down, 1.5. 10% down payment, 1.25. Cash out refi every single time, 3.3%. So just remember that interest rate reduction refinance loan, 0.5%. An assumption is 0.5%. Now, those fees get rolled into the mortgage. So one downside is if you're buying a property at 100% financing and you're tacking on 3.3%, you're actually buying with upside down equity. Now, that shouldn't stop you. I don't know if you guys seen the video clip from Dave Ramsey. He's like, VA loans are horrible. Don't use them because if you buy a property, they're expensive fees, high rates, and you're buying with no equity. The challenge with that is if you listen to him during when rates were 2.25, you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and hold off and not use my VA loan or until I have more money down. You would have definitely lost that benefit for you and your family to at least get into housing when it had lower rates and more affordable prices than we look at today. Right. So
you know what? I'm sorry, David. Jason and I just talked about how everyone's situation is so nuanced. So a blanket response to saying, hey, should I use the VA home loan? It's not going to be the same answer for everyone. And I tell you, for me personally, I use a VA home loan with no money down. There was no way where I was at in my life at that point in time that I would be able to afford the down payment. And that was my situation. And everyone's situation is absolutely different.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in too. I get where Dave Ramsey's coming from, right? I get what he's trying to say. And, unfortunately, in today's world, you're trying to chase the market and the values keep going up and you're trying to save money to catch that. So you're never quite getting in front of the wave to catch the wave and actually surf it. You're just constantly behind it. And that's a scary thing. I would also throw out that, how else can you leverage an asset that is worth so much money? That most people will never, ever be able to leverage an asset that's worth $500,000, $1 million, right? And this is a way to leverage that and the real estate is considered, an asset. That's why it's on the asset side of the columns there. Now, my question to you, since we're talking about 100% financing, David, 100% financing tells us, well, then there's 0% that I need to put down because it's 100% financing. But what does that mean as far as costs are concerned? 100% financing doesn't mean 100% no cost to you to get into the place. There are some costs. I'd like to hear you talk about that for our folks that may think 100% means I'm walking in with just $0 at all.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we'll have veterans that come to us and say, I have received a VA disability. Why do I have to pay closing costs? Right. So on average, nationally, closing costs are about 3% of a purchase price. Now, that's providing that you're using a regular loan. This kind of caveats to what Dave Ramsey was talking about, because a lot of times veterans get charged origination fees, and they also get charged discount points. So when you see those shiny interest rates that are out there, you're going to be paying for that. Okay, so keep that in mind. And that's why I always encourage people, reach out to us, show us what you guys are doing. We're happy to review it. And a lot of times, we're able to at least beat that. But again, everyone's situation is a little bit different. So closing costs can be paid for by sellers, but we don't really see that in the competitive market. Like if a house is getting 10 offers, why is someone going to risk trying to give you a credit, increasing the value? What if it doesn't appraise? Now you don't have the money. And that money for a down payment can come from a gift, and anyone on a VA loan can give you a gift. So even Jason, if he felt nice, I could ask him like, hey, can I borrow 10, or can you give me 10 grand to buy a house? Like, yeah, just making it rain. So, but a lot of people leverage their 401ks because they can take out loans against them. Sometimes they get we see a lot of today early inheritances from parents, just because we have a big generational, baby boomers, all that stuff. But we see that you can't borrow money against a credit card. We've seen people try to do that. Personal loan either, because you can't borrow money unless it's from a 401k or you borrow against the stock market. But yeah, but still, all closing costs can be paid for by a seller plus a 4% seller concession. It's important to understand there's a difference. All closing costs can be paid for, and seller concessions can actually pay down personal debt on your credit report to help you qualify for purchasing a property, which is unique only to VA home loans.
Wow, that's actually really interesting. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on the market, right? To be able to leverage that, like you said. I mean, in a hot seller's market where they're getting 10 offers in 3 days, and cash offers in some cases, from people moving from higher, areas. They sold their house, now they're bouncing out somewhere else. It might be a little more difficult as things, even out a little bit, or if there's been a house on the market for a while, if it's in more of a rural area or something like that, that's not as, it's very spotty, I'm sure, throughout the nation, and we're talking nationally. So, know your market and know your strengths. I think that the big takeaway there, though, David, is 100% financing does not equate to no money out of your pocket. You're going to most likely in today's market have to come up with something. So how can a veteran kind of get a glimpse of what that would look like as far as a total, right? How can they figure that out ahead of time before, if I know that I want to buy a house in X county in X state, how can I figure out what those costs might look like so that way I could be prepared for that?
That's a good question. So there's a couple different ways. One, when you do a pre-approval and you know the city you're trying to buy in, lenders have systems that can actually pull what the estimated fees would be. But again, a general good rule is 3% is on the safe side of what a purchase price is. So if a place is selling for $300,000, it's safe to assume it's going to cost you about $9,000 in closing costs, give or take 1%, just kind of depending on where you're at. Because I know, like in Florida, transfer taxes are high. Okay, so some states have a little bit higher costs, but then you have different benefits of being in that state. So that's something that you could do. You can also talk to a local realtor. They'll be able to tell you, hey, this is basically what the cost of the average price or average prices on closing, or the average closing cost on a purchase price. And because again, every area is going to be a little bit different. But if you guys want to reach out to me, I'm happy to walk you through that. And then we can set up exactly what you can and can't do with the VA loan and how much money you have to save. And I would also say that you want to not wake up one day and be like, today I am buying a house, because there's planning that goes into that. I say that, but the irony is I did that myself. Like I woke up on a Sunday morning, looked at a house, made an offer, and I'm like, I wasn't even planning on buying. But it's better when you have like further like a gear up time, because sometimes you're not financially ready. It might be something with credit, or you have to save a bit more money. Yeah, because especially when that dream house comes up, it's all about budgeting and how much you save and knowing that cost, like you said.
You know, some similarities is Jason and I always preach veterans for VA disability to use an accredited rep, which is a crucial part, especially because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm going to be real with you, David. Whatever you said, I don't know. And so I think it's important to use a rep that does understand what they're actually talking about, because it's so nuanced. It's definitely not a blanket answer. And real quick, David, how can veterans get a hold of you to meet with you and speak with you if they're in that planning phase? Or you know what? Maybe they did wake up today and it's like, I saw David's beautiful face. I'm going to buy a home right now.
It's funny. So in the description, there's a link that you can schedule a call with us. You can also check out the channel, VA Housing Education. We have a ton of videos too, because that's the beauty. Lately, people have called that, hey, I've been following you for a while. I watched all your videos. I think I answered my own question, but I want to make sure because it's based on my situation. And they always say, like you say, don't disqualify yourself. And people are surprised on what they can actually do, because how much they can leverage the VA loan. And to your point too earlier, Jason, is that when veterans talk about creating generational wealth, real estate is one of those things, right? Because if you own a home for 30 years, hopefully you don't have to keep refinancing to pull money out. But at the end of those 30 years, you buy it for $500,000, appreciates, 5-6% a year. You have a paid off asset, and now it's worth a lot more. I mean, historically, values have gone up. Even when the market crashed and everyone's like, I'm never buying a house again. Guess what? It's recovered from that like significantly, because you need a place to live.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You need a place to live, and they're not making any more land, and the houses are taking up the land. So there you go.
Unless we expand the United States.
Exactly. So when it comes to preparing, like you talked about, and like I'm glad Clay brought that up about kind of the same idea of work with an accredited rep, work with a licensed NMLS lender. Contact David. He's got all the check marks next to his name, and find out where you're at. Even if this is kind of my own opinion, and then I want to kick it to you, David, to kind of spell it out a little bit on what that might look like for somebody. People get, I guess, antsy, scared to run their credit, right? Yep. So some people, they hold that real close, and they don't want to lose. I'll let you talk about how many points and all that stuff, and how much of a factor that may have. But would it be prudent to go, I'm not quite sure where I'm at, but I do know that in a year, we'll say, I'm filing my disability claim now. I'm hoping for some decent back pay for closing costs. But I need to know kind of where I'm at and what I need to work on today, so that way I'm ready a year from now. Should I, or can I contact you and say, hey, run my stuff, although I'm not ready today, I just want you, because you're the professional, to take a look so I can be ready in a year?
100%. And the reason why you want to be able to take a look a year out in advance is that if you're worried about credit or finances, or you're transitioning from the service into the civilian life, or you're trying to make life decisions with work, a lot of times we'll review that and say, look, you're all set. Nothing has to change. Just continue paying all your bills on time, continue saving money, and you'll be set. Other times it's going to be like you have a couple credit blemishes. Let's figure out how we can get that fixed. And the cool part is that you can actually work with HUD consultants with your credit, and they do it for free, right? So you don't have to pay like these companies all this money for them to help you with your credit. And yeah, even though we look at it, we still rely on HUD consultants because it's a lot of people that need to kind of get their credit up where it needs to be. But again, a year's time frame gives you enough time to be able to position yourself, and again, as early as possible.
So, David, here's the follow-up question to that. With credit, okay, so now you're a year out. 5 years is too long. A year out's a pretty sweet spot. Can you touch on? I don't even know if it's still called this. I'm dusting off my lender hat from many moons ago. Like a rapid rescore. Kind of what that looks like when you're working with somebody's credit, getting things paid off, trying to get the credit where it needs to be in order to close. Maybe now you're getting a little closer to actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what that statement is, right? What is a rapid rescore? It's a tool that lenders have that consumers do not have access to. I don't know why that's the case, but it is what it is. So basically, if there's credit blemishes on your credit report that are absolutely incorrect, you have all the documentation that proves that. Someone like me, when I look at your credit report, I can actually have the credit agency that we use to pull credit with manually update your credit report with the credit bureaus. It takes about 7 business days. It is expensive, right? And because they charge, they have an in with this. And then that way, they'll within 7 business days, they actually update your credit report. You get a new credit pool, and then you're able then to get the updated scores or whatever that you need. We don't see that as much these days as we used to see back in the day. I think right now reporting is pretty on point, but you need to double check it. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people look at their free online credit reports like Credit Karma or Experian. Lenders don't look at Vantage scores. They look at very specific FICO scores. There's 3 of them they particularly look at. I don't know off the top of my head right now what they are, but there's hundreds of models that exist. So,
right. So you're talking about like the credit report companies, right? So like, is that what you're talking about? Like TransUnion, yeah. Experian, Equifax, right?
Yep.
So with that, do you guys take the center score?
Yes.
The middle score?
If it's the center score, but if there's 2 scores, they will take the lower of the 2. Now, if you have no credit score, that's also not. You can still get a loan even if you have no credit score at all, right? So that could include paying. It will include 12 months of canceled checks for rent payments. If you have a cell phone bill, they'll ask for the last 12 months, up to 24 months, utility bills. So they'll ask for stuff like that to basically make up a credit score for you. And every lender does it a little bit different, but it's possible, right? So no credit is better than bad credit. And bad credit you can always recover from, because as long as you stay on pace, after 7 years, all negative credit falls off unless it's a bankruptcy or a judgment. That's 10 years. So if you have these decent credit, you can leverage the VA home loan. I mean, it's a powerful tool to get into home ownership. I mean, sometimes people are like, man, after listening to you guys, maybe I should join the military just so I get the housing benefits. So yeah,
absolutely. And Clay, I know you're chomping at the bit to ask a question, but I have another one. I'm so excited.
We're good.
I start to get all wound up on this stuff, so it makes me want to. I'm going to come work for you, David. All right. So an 80% loan versus 100%. Okay, just so I could have another thing to compare it to. So 100% loan, because we're talking about 100%. What is the difference, if any, for interest rate? Is there an interest rate, I guess, adjustment because I'm going 100%, if that makes sense?
VA loans, not really too much. Property types, yeah. If you're buying a 3 or 4 flat, that's going to be a little bit typically different. So type of purchase that you do can change it. But I would say the number one driving factor for getting the best terms possible is your credit score. So the higher your credit, the better chance you have of getting the best deal possible. The worse your credit is, the higher risk it is. Yeah, and yes, it's all being guaranteed by the VA, right? It is based on the VA handbook. And by the way, the VA doesn't have a minimum credit score, but lenders do, right? Because again, it's risk-based lending. If you haven't been able to make any payments on time for the last 5 years, what makes you think that a mortgage is going to be on time? You know what I'm saying? So it's just
Right.
kind of like, if there's life events, they're normally like blimps. Like, hey, we were late for these 3 months because we lost the job, and that was 2 years ago. That's not a big deal. But just, when we see continuous, then, it just causes some issues.
Right. Did you have a question, Clay? Because I'm ready for another one.
No, I'm good. All
All
this
right.
is foreign to me.
I love
it is so awesome to see, someone who knows their craft just talk about it. It's an art, and I'm just here looking at someone paint a picture.
Totally. David's like, throw me anything. I got the answer. I love it. So I would love to hear your explanation, David, on rate versus points. Okay, discount points, and how that works for people, and when it makes sense to pay points versus not. If you can.
This could be a lengthy one, but okay. So lenders have different sets of margins they operate on, right? So it's basically, they look at it like the manufacturing, right? If it costs me, based on my marketing, hiring all these people, X amount of dollars, and I have to make X amount of money, then they set certain margins, right? So they might say, well, based on, this group of veteran and VA loans, we spend X amount of money, again, X amount of expenses. And so we have to charge origination fees and discount points for inflated rates, right? That is a thing. So a lot of times what veterans don't realize, and it kills me because I did a video on it. It's like every month, veterans spend unnecessarily over $38 million a month in fees on VA loans. It's mind-blowing. Over $38 million. There's over 25,000 VA loans originated this every month in the United States. Wow. It is mind-blowing. And so you really don't have to pay a lot of those fees. When we look at the situation, when we're looking at, does it make sense to do discount points, you have to look at it in the sense of a recoupment period. If I tell you it costs you $5,000 to save $40 a month, don't do it. But some people are like, I want to do it. And I'm like, but wait till rates drop, and then you can do an interest rate reduction refinance loan, right? Like, if it takes you 10 years to recoup on a cost, that's insane. Like, don't do that, because again, that makes no financial sense. I'm not a CPA, but I do own a house. You do write off interest. Okay. So there's benefits to having, to home ownership, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point, right? So the way that I look at it, and just to kind of encapsulate that, is it's kind of like a teeter totter, right? A seesaw in the playground, right? You got interest rate on one side, you got points on the other side. This is your interest rate with 0 points. But you can get a little bit of a lower interest rate if you pay money. The points are a percentage
right.
of your loan amount. So that's the $5,000 that you're talking about. If you're only saving $40, figure out the math and see how many years it's going to take you to recoup it. But if it was whatever it was, if it's $2,400 in points, and you're saving $200 a month for some reason, well, then all of a sudden the math makes sense. Right. So you just need to look at that and understand and be aware as a borrower, right? As the borrower of that mortgage loan. And I think that sadly, a lot of people just aren't aware. And I know that Clay's like little light bulbs have been, I could tell, because he's totally sitting there and looking at this and going, wow, this is a lot like the other side, the VA disability side, people are going out and they're paying money that they shouldn't pay to some other organization, and all this type of stuff. And, when does it make sense? Does it make sense for me to file this claim or not? Right. And so there's a lot of these weird little kind of pieces that kind of match up in a weird way. So, I love this. 100% is a great benefit for us. There's no other. It used to just be FHA, right? Was really the only thing. But then I don't even know how many years ago now, 10, 15 years ago, they eliminated the 100% kind of aspect ish on FHA, and they make you come in with a little bit down now. Is that true?
3.5 is the minimum. Yeah. Conventional is 3% down, but a lot of veterans get steered into FHA loans. It's mind blowing or conventional loan. Like I just talked to somebody today where they're like, lender told me that I can qualify with a conventional loan, but not with my VA loan. And I'm thinking, and he walked me through a situation. I'm thinking to myself, what are they smoking over there? Like, it's not how it works. Like there's huge benefits to the program. And this guy was putting down 20% down payment, but the picture overall made sense, because that's another question veterans will have, is that I have a 20% down payment. Should I use my VA loan or should I not? Right. Don't save. I mean, some people, again, depending on how long you're going to live at a place, if you're trying to, don't buy if you're trying to be at a place less than a year, unless you need an exit strategy, right? Unless you plan on renting it out and you're going to make money and you research the rental market ahead of time. And you can also have someone assume your mortgage if you purchase a property, you thought you're going to be there for a long time and now you need to leave. An assumption is a great option to do, but that's like a whole video on that alone.
Yeah. Your idea about exit strategy makes a lot of sense. To just touch on real quick, I think that because we're talking about 100%, we're also talking about veterans and service members that can also utilize their VA loan, right? So you're in the service and now you bounce out. So you bought a property at 100%. Definitely a harder aspect to rent out and create some sort of a net positive rental income when you're buying 100%. That's difficult. However, if you're near a base, right? And again, everybody needs to do their own due diligence and figure it out. This is just an example of a way to think about it. Is if you're near a base, there could be some Joes and Janes out there that might want a rental property to move into, to rent it when you leave, and renting it by bedroom, right? So you might have a 4-bedroom, rent out the 4 bedrooms could net you more to help cover that cost of the property. So just another thing to kind of think about, I guess, when it comes to exit strategies. With that, Clay, did you have anything you wanted to throw in?
No, that's it. Jason, I think you're also an expert. You're what I call a hidden expert. Okay, David, thank you so much for being on. And one more time, David, for the viewer, where can the viewer contact you? What does that look like?
So check out the description down below. You can schedule a call with me. You can check out the YouTube channel, VA Housing Education, and also be able to get any additional research that you want or you're looking for. It's all there. And then we'll do more videos like this to push out more content.
Absolutely. You know what, David? We're definitely going to have you on more. I mean, this is such a pleasure because it is, quite frankly, one of the most misunderstood benefits that's definitely not taken advantage of. And when it is taken advantage of, sadly, people are paying too much money when they don't need to, or they're getting steered out of it because the lender doesn't know how to actually do a VA loan. So instead of saying, I don't know how to do a VA loan, they go, well, you'd be better off if you went over here to this loan. So, not to throw on any names, but, you definitely have your work cut out for you, and you do a great job for all of our veterans. And that's why you're on this channel. We really appreciate your expertise and the knowledge that you're bringing to everybody. So with that, I'm going to let Clay take us out because he does such a darn good job. Go for it, Clay.
All right. So it goes something like, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong. And that's the correct way to say it, isn't it, Jason?